Okay, before we read about Grendel, the monster, you should have these three characters identified already: the Hrothgar, Grendel, Herod. Go ahead and write down Cain before you answer number one. We'll come back and fill this in just a minute. We're going to read and answer a couple questions and we'll come back to Cain. So we're on page 42 and we're reading about Grendel the monster. So here we go. A powerful monster living down in the darkness growled in pain. Impatient as day after day the music rang loud in that hall, the harp's rejoicing call, and the poet's clear songs. Okay, so if we look right here, powerful monster, growled in pain, the music rang loud in that hall. So the music coming from Herod, coming from the bar, is annoying this monster. So if you look at the study questions, number one says, what does the presence of a monster suggest in epic poetry? That is a characteristic of an epic to have a supernatural element. So a monster is something you don't normally find in everyday life, so that makes it a supernatural element. So the fact that this story has a monster is going back to those characteristics of an epic that we talked about earlier. So that would be number one on your study questions. So you can pause that if you need to write that down. We're going to move on to the next page. We don't need to read anything else on that page. So we're at the top of page 44 now. Again, I'm going to read. So Hrothgar's men, remember Hrothgar is the king of these people that are being attacked, lived happy in his hall, till that monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell but earth. He was spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters, born of Cain, murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. Okay, so if you don't know who Cain is a character from the Bible. We have Cain and Abel. They are brothers. Cain kills his brother Abel out of jealousy, and God banishes Cain. So apparently the monster Grendel in this story is a relative of Cain. So you can go back to that other character that you're supposed to identify, the one that we skipped, and you can go ahead and write down Cain as a relative or ancestor of Grendel. Alright, so we're going to continue on. We're going to skip the rest of that paragraph, and we're going to start with the next paragraph here. Then when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Herod. So when darkness comes, Grendel attacks. He goes to Herod. He goes to Herod right here, which is also known as the bar, okay, the mead hall. So when darkness comes, Grendel attacks, the monster attacks. Wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. So he's attacking when they're asleep. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the door and there in silence snatched up 30 men. So he grabs 30 men, smashes them, grabs 30 men with one hand or one claw and smashes them on the ground, unknowingly in their beds, and ran out with their bodies. So he grabs their bodies, throws them over his shoulder, the blood dripping behind him, back to his lair, back to his cave, his hideout, delighted with his night's slaughter, and he's happy with the fact that he's killed all these men. So he comes in, grabs 30 men, smashes them on the ground, and walks out with their blood dripping behind him. All right, we're going to continue on. At daybreak, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that morning broke their long feast in tears and laments for the dead. So they are, the next morning, very upset that they saw everything that had been destroyed, including all these men. Okay, we're going to skip down here to, it's line 48, 49, so right here. And that night Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough, no savage assault quenched his lust for evil. So he came back and attacked again the following night. Then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds as far from Herit as they could find. So everybody leaves the bar at night. They make sure that they don't fall asleep there or pass out there. The only way that they can be safe is to not fall asleep in the bar in Herit. As far from Herit as they could find, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. Distance was safety. So just, the farther you are from the bar, the safer you are. The only survivors were those who fled him. So if you ran away from Grendel, you could be safe. And then it says hate has triumphed. So let's go ahead and answer some questions here. So on line 49, the poet said the beginning might not be the end. If you think about that, what do you think that might mean? Just give that a thought. But basically what that's saying is that this is just the beginning, and that the Grendel is probably going to return again to kill. So there's your number 2. So basically he's going to keep killing as often as he can. And then number 3, that very last line on page 44 says hate had triumphed. The word triumphed means won. So how is hate winning? It's because Grendel is in control. He is representing evil and hate, and he has all control of their hangout, of their bar, and nobody can go there and have a good time without the fear of being killed by Grendel. So there's your number 3 for for how is hate triumphed, how is hate winning. So there's number 3 on that. So we're going to go to the top of page 45 now. I'm sorry, my book is not really in a good spot, but okay. So we're going to start at the top of the page. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, won against many and won. So Herit stood empty and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar. So 12 years. It says 12 winters. Winter only happens once a year. So 12 years that Grendel has attacked these people. Hrothgar, again, remember he's the king of these people that are being killed. So Hrothgar, king of the Danes, those are the people. Sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. So what do you think hell-forged hands? Forged means something that you create or make. So if it's hell-made hands, then that means that Grendel was created and made in